On a scale of one to, let's call it 1 to 5, put in the chat how comfortable you are using Canva. We'll start there. 5 being the best. 5 is like, I got this, Ray, get out of here. I could replace you in this call. Awesome. A lot of 5s, a lot of people who are going to take over right now. I will be calling on you as my backups. All right. A couple zeros, couple ones. That's okay. We're hoping the goal is that everybody walks out of here feeling like a good 4. We're not going to shoot for a 5 because it's overwhelming to, shoot for perfection on first date, but we want to make sure that we could get everybody at least feeling comfortable and not feeling like this is scary because it's not scary. This is going to be a tool. It's going to be helpful for everybody. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and then we're going to get started. Katie, just some housekeeping stuff. Is this going to be recorded for folks afterwards?
Yes, it is.
All right, awesome. All right. So, Katie, also, can you just monitor the chat in case I don't see it? I have way too many tabs open and I'm going to try my best to keep up with the chat, but it'd be good to get some backup there.
I got it.
All right. Folks, you see this? You see Canva 101 over here?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So it's good to see that we got a good range of folks. This was one of those trainings where it's usually up in the air. We usually get a big group of folks responding to this one. A few years ago, Canva wasn't a thing, so we would do a training around like building design assets using Adobe and paper and pencil and fax machines and all the old tools. But now we have this beautiful thing called Canva, and every day it gets more sophisticated, it gets more helpful. And it's really going to help you out if this is your first time running a campaign for 401Gives. So a little bit about myself. My name is Ray Nunez. This is my 6th time supporting the 401Gives team. My wife and I, we run an organization together and we lead the marketing, the social media, the paid media, the banners you see on the big blue bug, all the stuff related to 401Gives on that front. I am a retired and now aspiring to be a retired fundraiser. I think I'm just hooked on it like many of you. I love talking about missions and telling good stories. So I kept getting pulled back into the sector. But in my day job, I run a marketing agency, and our big focus is fundraising. I have a degree in graphic design, so I feel qualified to talk about this. And I also feel like I should disclaim that I was once a Canva hater. I walked out with this very expensive degree from Johnson and Wales, go Wildcats. And I said, if I just paid all this money, why would I use this amateur tool, right? When I could do it the right way as a graphic designer. And after being exposed to the tool a little bit more, I realized they have 2 different uses. You could use Adobe programs to build more sophisticated materials, but if you need templatized things, if you need to deploy campaigns quickly, which we all do, and if you want to collaborate with your team, tools like Canva and Figma are definitely the go-to. I'm also a dad of 2 kids. So today they are at school, so you're not going to hear them running around in the background, but they are also part of the team over here. All right, so we are going to cover quite a bit today. I love this picture because I look insane. This is from last year's or 2 years ago, 401 Gives. That's Katie right here. You can't see her, but she's real. This is us celebrating getting to, what was it, a million, our first million. And I think we got close to 4 million that year. So today we're going to be covering just the basics of what is Canva. We're going to break down, what makes a good campaign. We're really going to be talking about systems building, not just making things look pretty. We're going to share some like practical toolkits and tips and tricks around, your checklist for the day. We're going to design some real materials. We're going to open up Canva and do it in real time together. And then if we got some time, we'll make some introductions to $1 million donors. But I don't know, we might be short on time today. All right. So the big question that everybody's here to answer is what actually wins on 401 Gives? For those of you who have never participated in 401 Gives, it can be a little scary. It can feel a little Hunger Games-esque, especially if you open up Instagram and you see that there are hundreds of organizations all talking about their awesome missions. There's so many people shouting out their favorite orgs. The noise could be overwhelming. I'm telling you all that to say that that doesn't make this, impossible to be successful in. It just means that we have to get creative in how we're going to capture people's attention. So if any of you are on social media right now, you know that It's just constantly bombarding you with distractions and, like reels that are trying to capture your attention, whether it's AI generated slop, videos of cats, world news. Like there's just so much noise trying to like compete with our content. So the main focus today is going to make sure that we figure out, what is our message, and then what is the appropriate way to get people's reactions immediately. If we could get people to stop scrolling, that's success for us. Getting them to give money is the ultimate goal, but getting people to stop is what we're going to be working towards today. So what actually wins on 401 Gives? It is a quantity game. It's the volume of touches is very important. You can't just post once and then sit and wait for people to give you money on 401 Gives. You have to constantly be, exposing your mission to them, whether it's through social media, through email campaigns, printed materials, etc. The other important piece is consistency of your message. I have seen so many organizations try to say, hey, on April 1st or on March 31st, we're going to be raising money for a new building and a bus and a new program we're sponsoring and t-shirts and mugs and all the things. And that just gets very, very confusing for donors. We want to have a consistent, clear message and a very clear call to action. On March 31st, give to support our new youth program, period. Give to support this initiative, give to support blank, instead of rattling off a list of all the ways that they could support your efforts. The other piece is urgency. We want to remind people that this is a limited window. There's only X amount of hours that they could give, which actually does help. When people have the open-ended date of, hey, they could give whenever they want, they're less likely to take action immediately. But if you say, hey, we got 6 hours left of this thing, people are going to feel a little bit of that pressure. And the reason that we're talking about Canva today is because good design could support all of these things. All right. I should have said this from the beginning, but please hold your questions to the end because we're going to be flying through a lot of content here. So let's talk about the three phases of a strong campaign. So right now we are in phase one, which is the pre-launch. You could call this awareness, you call this the warm-up, but right now this is when you should be reaching back out to donors to say, hey, remember us? We haven't emailed you in a while, maybe. We haven't posted in a while, but we just want to get back on your radar and remind you that, we do meaningful work and that you once upon a time liked us, subscribed to our email, and you had some sort of connection to us. The second phase here is obviously in the launch. So that's the first couple of graphics that you post the day of saying, 401 Gives is live, give before this match, give before this timeline. This is when you start kind of posting that urgency message. And then the third phase, this is the stage that people forget. You just raised a lot of money. You just got a lot of new donors. A lot of folks forget that follow-up or don't prioritize it. It's very important, especially if this is your first time, to be very mindful about thanking and recognizing your donors. You don't want to dismiss the fact that somebody took time out of their day to give you some sort of monetary support on this day. So follow-ups can be in the form of a nice thank you email. It could be a text if you collected that information. And if you really don't have the capacity, you could just do a simple thank you graphic or a thank you email, and that should be plenty. But please, please, please do not ignore the follow-up. It really does make a difference in keeping that donor coming back. All right. Can you guys see the GIFs? If you can't see the GIFs, this whole presentation is not going to make sense. All right, we're good. So the biggest creative mistake, and I'm saying this from years of also being, on the other side of this, do not try to shoot for perfection. We do not need to create like pieces of art in our content. It's more important for you to create graphics that are consistent. Like we mentioned earlier, it's more important for you to create a campaign system than spending a ton of time overthinking your decisions. You all know the whole like adage and the saying of like artists never know when to stop because they just keep going and try to make refinements and perfect and perfect. Don't do that. Don't be an artist. Be a campaign manager who wants to create the next piece in order to get more engagement, in order to get more reactions. So in short, don't overthink. All right. So let's talk about the donor's kind of psychology or mindset on 401 Gives. So if we feel like it's overwhelming for us as fundraisers, put yourself in the shoes of a donor. They're opening up their feed and seeing way too much content. So we want to make sure that your content is talking about social proof. That could look like testimonials. It could look like other third-party validation, just other ways of demonstrating that you are creating meaningful impact without just being, a standard block of text from your executive director. We know your executive director loves the mission. That's why they're there. It would be more impactful to hear from a program participant, a board member, a past donor. So social proof is very, very important. Again, you want to remind folks of when those deadlines are. 6 p.m. on April 1st, that's your cutoff. You have until that time. Um, for those of you who've never participated in the past, we also do a lot of matching gifts throughout the campaign. So keep an eye on the website to see when those opportunities are going to happen and communicate that back to your donors. So if we are going to do, for example, a match that's going to happen from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m., let your donors know so they could hold off on giving you money until that window. That way their dollar goes a long way. And again, simplicity is much more efficient than, complicating the thing. Let people know that there's an easy way to give. The platform is super easy to use, and they don't have to overcomplicate the process. Katie, there's some people joining kind of in real time. I'm just letting them in, but if you could let them in, it'll
Yeah,
be a lot easier. Cool.
gotcha.
All right. So we talked about stopping the scroll. How many of you are on TikTok? Put it in the chat, raise your hands. TikTok, I think, has done some damage to our attention span. We'll throw reels in there too. They're also to blame. We're just so conditioned to just scrolling and scrolling to the next thing that it really is important that we try to do something unique to get people to stop the scroll. Whether it's a really, engaging headline, maybe it's a data point that might be really, exciting to people, or maybe it's a big scary data point that people didn't know about. Something that is related to your mission that's going to compel people to stop and then at least read, the content on that graphic. We also want to communicate that impact very quickly. I love a good carousel. I love, a long form video. But if people don't get it in the first 2 to 3 seconds, they're gone. They're going to move on to the next thing. So it's going to be really helpful if you have something that's clearly communicating impact. In this case, the donation link is obvious because it's your 401 Gives page, but constantly remind people where to go for making the gift. And then I feel like the fourth bullet, I shouldn't have to put in here, but I'm putting it in here because I see a lot of people who don't do this. Constantly reinforce your brand. I've seen 401 Gives posts where they don't tell me there's no graphic of or no logo of the organization, or there's no website, or there's no mention of like who they serve or visual consistency there. So again, if you are serving, an organization that's doing cat rescues, get some photos of some beautiful kittens in there. Make sure that it's constantly consistent, so people aren't confused around, who are you and why are you soliciting me? Make it easy. All right. This is the most important slide here. You're going to get this in a follow-up, screenshot it, write it down. This is the mini toolkit. This is kind of like our, if you've all heard the phrase MVP, a minimal viable product, that's what this is. This, in my opinion, after seeing this over and over and over again, this is what organizations should be doing across the board at the very, very minimum. So I put a range here, 6 to 12 social posts. We're already at the 3rd of March, so you're probably looking at like 6 to 7 instead of 6 to 12. Here's some examples of what we should be including in those. So, a save the date. Hey, mark your calendars. March 31st is coming up. Let people know what that window of giving is. You should have some content around what your why is. Maybe it's a simple graphic with your mission statement. Maybe it's a testimonial around the impact that you've made serving your constituents. You should have a graphic that is a direct ask. We're all fundraisers here. We're all very comfortable asking for money, but your graphics should be very literal in asking for money. Don't just say, support our mission, join our community. Like all of that is very abstract. We want to give people very clear calls to action. Give us $20 to support mentorship, period, right? Something that's very specific. I also think it's a good practice to include a general 401 Gives 101 type post. For those of you who, have been around here for a while, you already know what 401 Gives is, but your donors don't, or we can't assume that they do. So maybe include a post that says, we're organization X and we're participating in 401 Gives. Let me tell you what that is. It's Rhode Island's biggest day of giving. It's raised over X amount of millions of dollars, blank, 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 blank. We could give you plenty of content around that. And then you should give some very clear case for support. This is, donor data. This is impact data. Simple things that are making the case for why you need to be in business. And then again, I mentioned the gratitude posts. That should also be part of your toolkit here. For those of you who are, going to be looking into email marketing, I would also recommend that some of these social graphics get repurposed to be email headers. That way, they're hitting at that visual point twice. If you have a graphic that says, 60% of our kids need access to backpacks, that same graphic can be repurposed into an email header, so your donors are seeing it multiple times, and that message is starting to hit in different platforms. So the copy of your email should match whatever that header is and whatever the theme is of that specific blast. I added the line about 1 to 2 impact graphics, mostly because we can't just rely on, believe me, we're doing meaningful work. You should also have some data to back that up. And then, of course, we talked about the gratitude graphic. So this is the kind of the bare minimum MVP. I could have added a whole nother slide around timing. Timing is really up to you. You're gonna, post these in the sequence that makes sense to your audience, that makes sense for your capacity, and of course, given the amount of content that you're planning on having. All right. Consistency, I already mentioned this already, but please keep the colors the same, the fonts the same, make it look very, very consistent so folks start to have that mental recognition of your brand. It's very important that you have, consistent calls to action. Maybe you have one call to action the whole time. It is give to support, foster kids. And you're saying that over and over and over again for the next, 27 days. All right. We all know headlines. Back in the day when we would all read newspapers, the thing that caught our attention were headlines. Now it's, it used to be BuzzFeed. Now it's like the headlines and social captions. But headlines are still, ruling the attention span here. So I think I mentioned this already, but you want to be very specific in your headlines. Avoid that general support us language because that doesn't mean anything to anybody. And if I'm seeing, 300 other posts on 401Gives, I want to at least see something that's very specific to you and not an ambiguous join our network, support our impact type of language. So for example, give a data point, give an exact, audience that's being benefited from your mission. Give a specific goal that you're working towards. Give an update with a real number. If you're raising $10,000 and halfway through this campaign, you're at 9,000, make that call to action. Help us get this last $1,000, right? Make it very literal, very specific for people. All right. So let me show you some samples. This is obviously a visual presentation, so I'm going to switch over to this other tab. How many of you are familiar with Big Brothers Big Sisters of Rhode Island? Cool. All right, so that's a great team over there. Katie and her team are doing awesome work. Let me show you an example of what their campaign materials have looked like in the past, just so you could see an example. So are you seeing this here? Yes? All right. So I'm just going to show you a little bit around like why these graphics exist, and then I'm going to show you some social captions that go with them. So for those of you who don't know, Big Brothers Big Sisters, their specialty is mentorship. So this whole campaign is around educating folks around why they should support that, what's the impact, what's the need. So the first is that save the date that I talked about, letting people know, hey, it's coming up on, oops, hold on. Let me make my screen a little bit bigger. You can't see the whole graphic. Can you see that now? All right, so save the date is very prominent at the bottom. The link is very prominent here, so people know where to go. In their case, they made a short link. So it's their website /401Gives, which is going to redirect back to their 401Gives page. You're welcome to do that. You're also welcome to just use the 401gives.org /your organization link. But this is a little bit shorter and it's easier for people to remember. So this is likely going to go sometime this week just to make people aware of the date and so they could hold it on their calendar. They're sending an email blast, and in that email blast, it's going to be a very similar graphic and a link that is called an iCal link. So people could click it, and then it adds 401Gives to their calendar. I highly recommend you look into that because then it'll have a placeholder for your donors on their calendar. So it's super, super helpful. All right, so this next graphic, it's introducing their why. So this whole graphic is very simple. It's just about, it just got bigger. It's playing on the riff of their name, but it's going to be giving people some some data points in the caption and explaining, why they're participating this year. What's their goal? What are they working towards? This next graphic here is an example of a direct ask. So make a big gift. In the caption, we'll be talking about the specific tiers that we're encouraging people to give. In their case, it's 25, 50, 100, 200, 500 plus. But those specific tiers have different benefits, right? This goes towards supporting a direct match for kids. This goes to supporting an activity, to supporting transportation. Like they're being very literal in what those tiers support. This is a bonus graphic for them. This is an anniversary year for them. So they're going to talk about why this is significant. If you're also experiencing an anniversary, I encourage you to include something about that in here. People get excited when it's an affinity year, something that's a big milestone, and they're more likely to support. So here's an example of a case for support. They're doing this in the series of Did You Know? It's, again, reintroducing their mission. It's reintroducing some of their impact points. In their case, they're talking about, they have direct matches, so people know that there's a personalized experience in mentorship. This is a thing about their type of support. So you're seeing the point here, right? You want to have a couple of these that are sprinkled throughout the presentation or the campaign that allow people to know exactly, what you're up to and, where's this money going. All right, so it's March 31st. This is the graphic that goes live, 5:55 a.m., letting people know this is the time to give. If it's on their calendar, they've already gotten the reminder. But these graphics are, again, telling a very simple story. It's time to give. 401Gives is live. Giving ends on April 1st. So it's giving people that urgency and that deadline we talked about. This next graphic is, again, another direct ask. Are you giving cash, etc.? Urgency, there's still time to give. This would be posted on April 1st, likely in the middle of the day. So people who've maybe seen this the day prior and they haven't actually made their gift yet could be reminded like, hey, there's still time. You're not too late. You could still make a gift to support our work. So I'm not going to go through the rest of them, but you start to see the pattern here, right? There's calls to action, there's case for support, there's very clear and consistent messaging, and the visuals look very, very consistent. We're not introducing a pink, we're not introducing a random color in here. Even the format stays exactly the same. This doesn't mean you need to replicate the same structure, but for them it works. And their donors like that it's a very, very simple to follow graphic structure. All right. And then the last graphic, which is very important, is that gratitude one, right? Do not forget this one. If I see you without a gratitude post, I will call you out using the 401Gives page because you got to thank people. That's the whole point of this, right? All right. So, again, you're seeing the consistency, which is what matters here. The one thing that I have encouraged them to change on this is, more pictures of people. These are stock images, but I know they have so many mentorship photos that are real. Give more of that visual. These big graphic ones are great as kind of like fillers, but any chance you get, give people real video, real photo, so they can see that you're real people doing real work, right? They just happen to be like a national type organization, so they have a library of photos. You still have a little bit of time if you don't have those photos to take them, so you have some quality stuff to work with. Cool. All right, so those were some samples here. Let me jump back over. Okay, so we're gonna take some time. Katie, how am I doing? It's 1:30? Yeah.
Yeah,
All
it
right.
is 127. So you got 3 extra minutes there.
Oh, perfect. I love that. All right. So everybody has Canva open. Let's do a quick little exercise together. If you don't have Canva open, open up a Google Doc, pull out a sticky note, do something that is going to at least, process this exercise together, and then you could bring it over to Canva when you're ready. All right. I'll give people a second to get that ready. While you're doing that, I should remind you all, Canva is free for nonprofits. So if you don't have the free version, it's /nonprofits. It'll ask you for your EIN letter. You're able to have, I think, like 50 to 60 users on there. It's pretty awesome. But please do not pay for Canva ever. You get it for free.
Can you say that website that you just said one more time? Because I'm paying for it, so good to know.
Oh, yeah, I got you. And they will reimburse you. They're super cool about that. I think it's canva.com/nonprofits. It might be not for profits, but if you Google it, you'll be able to find the first link. If somebody finds it, please put it in the chat so other people could access it. All right. So if you have Canva open, or if you have a Google Doc or whatever, this is what we're going to start doing. We're going to build your launch post. So this is the one that I talked about earlier. This is the one that says, 401 Gives is coming. Here, I'll show you the other example, right? We're going to build your version of this. So what we're going to do is spend some time creating your headline. So what is the thing that you're fundraising for? What's the thing that you're excited to, showcase this 401 Gives? It should be something very simple, very literal, like we talked about, that's going to capture people's attention. Um, then you're going to create some sort of outcome, which is, by making a gift, it will support blank, it will encourage blank. And then you already know what the call to action is going to be. It's going to be save the date from March 31st to the 1st. And then there really is no deadline right now because you're just letting people know to save the date. But we're going to build out our first graphic together. And then does anybody know if you could do photos in the chat here on Zoom? Can we drop some samples in here? It'd be cool to do a little show and tell about that.
Yes, you can.
All right, awesome. So please download it, put it in the chat because we want to support each other here. We want to give some input. So right now, this is really an exercise on copywriting. We're not getting to the nitty-gritty of design just yet, but you need to, master your 4 sections here before you start getting into making it look pretty. All right. Does anybody want to share? Anybody have any powerful headlines that they're workshopping right now? And if you're going to share, just let us know what your organization is so we have some context.
Is there a place to raise your hand?
Just raise your hand. I got you.
Okay, I got
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
My name is Amy, and I work with Smith's Castle, which is a historic house museum. What we'd like to be able to do is raise money to put a land acknowledgement for the Narragansett tribe, who really owns this land. And
Mhm.
what I'd love to use as a headline, but I don't think it's going to work, is how's this go? Why cheer near knee top, which is the Narragansett way of saying hello, my friend.
Mhm.
But I don't think that'll work. And I'm not even sure what I'm trying to do is going to work. I think it's going to have to be more tangible than that. Your
Yeah, Amy,
comments.
I think I love the effort. I love that this is what you're going to be focused on this year. I think you do need to introduce the plan. Like, why are you doing this? Why is this important? Why is this relevant to your organization right now? And then, then work into some of the more creative content like that. I do love that as a social post. What your top is going to get some people's attention who already know about it. But I think right now you should say we're raising funds to support a land acknowledgement. We are our organization sits on Narragansett land. Like there should be something that's very direct, which then you could give some more context in your caption. But if that's something that you're educating your community on, it should be very literal because they might not even know that this is a thing. I love that. Anybody else? Thank you, Amy. Thank you for sharing. And you could just unmute yourself and start talking.
Okay.
What about,
I'm a little overwhelmed with, we have a number of different programs at Ripen,
Mhm.
and there's not one specific. We haven't really defined a mission for 401 Gives like that. Um, what what program 401 Gives could support.
Mhm.
So I feel like it's I'm a little premature, which based on your former slides, I'm behind the 8 ball here. But I think it's sharing stats like of some of
Yep.
the data that we're in the middle of doing our 25 annual report. So I've just like compiled a bunch of data about like the clients served, the number of dollars we've saved in health insurance for Rhode Islanders. Is that compelling?
I love data and that
Mm-hmm.
compels me. If you
Mm-hmm.
have you could have two things here. You could have an impressive data point, which is we have helped X amount of people or we have
Mm-hmm.
done this. And then you have a big scary data point that says 80% of, children struggle with blank, right? Those types of points, I would encourage you to do both if you have them. But if you're already doing your annual report for 2025, there's got to be some really good data nuggets in there. There's got to be something that you could tell a whole story around.
Yeah.
And then again, just narrow down the focus because y'all do a lot. There's a lot over there, right, Ben, that you could focus on. I would encourage you to just keep it into one lane, either youth or seniors or special education, but keep it very, very focused.
Okay, thank
I
you.
also want to add really quickly
Mhm.
that there's a support areas function on your pages. And when you add in support areas, it allows you to build out a custom campaign for your different programs. So if you're an organization that's really wide and you have multiple points that you're like, I just can't choose which one to put in there, you can make support areas that get their own peer-to-peer fundraisers, they get their own link, their story, their images. I'm not going to lie that it's a little bit more work and you do have to do that. But if you really don't know which one to choose and you want to give your donors a couple of different offerings, there is that function in there.
Yeah,
Great.
I love that.
Thank you.
I'm in a similar position as Sarah. My name is Anna. I work for the MLK Community Center in Newport. We have over 25 programs, so it's really hard to just talk about one of them. Last year for 401 Gives, for our like initial save the date post, we talked about our goal. I'm wondering if that's a good strategy or if we should pivot to do something more like a headline, maybe with like a stat, like you were saying. But it's hard to pick a stat is the thing because we have so many. So I wasn't sure if you had any guidance on that.
Yeah, this might be a hot take, but the goal to me is not necessarily an attention grabbing thing anymore. When you're doing like a capital campaign and you're saying we're raising $2 million for this, that's getting people excited. But if you're saying, hey, we have a $5,000 goal, it's not going to be as compelling as saying we want to help 100 kids get access to backpacks, right? Like make it very literal. The dollar amount is not going to be the motivator for most people. Again, especially considering the format where there's a couple other people. If you're scrolling and every post says, help us reach our goal, help us reach our goal,
Yeah.
it's not going to do it for you, right?
Okay. Thank you. That's good insight.
Yeah. Sticking with MLK Center, if there is a new program you're launching or a really successful program you had last year, I would make the case to say that's the one we should be focused on. We want to replicate it. We have stories already. We already have data. People are already familiar with it if they're following us. Like, I wouldn't introduce something revolutionary and new because it
Mhm.
might take a little bit more work to educate people.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. All right. Anybody else? Are people dropping it in the chat? Dropping photos in the chat?
We're dropping some titles in the chat, not so much photos yet, but we've got
Cool.
Denise Green said, whose land are we on?
Mhm.
Valerie said, scholarships
Love
for
that.
music campers. Asma said, supporting mental health needs in the Muslim community. And then I also dropped a link to the most recent 401 Gives newsletter. And in there, you're going to find a bunch of help articles related to your profile building, as well as some support areas specific. So you can check that out if you want to.
Awesome. All right. So I'm gonna we'll have plenty of time to jump back into questions. Again, this is your very bare bones structure of what this should look like. I also love questions. People, pay attention to a question on social posts. So, did you know, like Amy, for you, did you know we are on Narragansett land? Like that is a very good prompt that might get somebody to stop to say, oh, actually, I didn't. And then the caption might give me a little bit more context. Don't give them the whole story on there, but just that one big question could get their attention, right? So, after we've done all of this, after you built out, what that goal is, what the focus is, this is your short checklist. Is the outcome specific? If you're like making it very vague, Anna, like what you were talking about, like support our goal, that's still a little vague. Make sure you could refine it to get as clear as possible around what the specific outcome would be, especially around like the giving tiers. If you're saying give us $20, what is that $20 going to do? Is that going to go towards one specific concrete thing, or is it going towards a general operating fund or something like that, right? Oops. Okay. Again, is the deadline visible? Are you even mentioning the date? Right now, you should absolutely say March 31st because a lot of people will be confused. We're obviously changing it from April 1st to March 31st. So keep reinforcing that. We don't want anybody to, wake up on the morning of the second thinking that they could give because we've done that in other years. Is the link clear? In this case, do people know they have to go to 401 Gives or are they going to go to your website? Are they going to go to this other campaign page you built? Just let people know that they're going specifically to your 401 Gives page. It's not the end of the world if somebody gives you a gift outside of the platform during this window, but we want to, keep people on the same thing. All right. And again, is my design consistent? Does one post, if I'm looking at them all together, or if I'm looking at it in the Instagram grid, does one feel totally out of place? Is even the copy or tone totally different? It doesn't just have to be visually consistent. Like, does it just feel like it's, using a different voice? Refine it to make sure that they feel consistent. We struggle with that with some organizations that have a lot of cooks in the kitchen. You might have the voice of the marketing director, you have the voice of the fundraising director, the voice of the CEO or executive director, and then it just starts to feel like it's not the same platform that you're looking at. So try to make sure that it's consistent, and then it's at least capturing like a universal tone. And then the big one is, have we posted enough? If you posted once and you got, 5 to 10 likes and a couple comments in there, and then you didn't post again, you can't assume that that momentum from 20 days ago is going to carry into March 31st. So be consistent, be reminding folks. Don't worry about being annoying. Tis the season to be annoying. Like, this is the time of year where we could really be pushing on
Mhm.
folks, and try to be, looking for quantity at this point in the game. Amy?
Yeah, I love the idea of having social posts. And even though the castle's been around forever, so it's 1600s, we don't have a lot of followers.
Mhm.
So I'm anxious to find out from other people, how do you get that to be shared? What inspires people to share your post?
So I could let other folks chime in on that, but quickly I could say, like, you're trying to engage people in dialogue, right? You're the type of organization that is educating people. Like, it's a different type of audience than somebody who
Hmm.
might be following like a very specific social services need, right? So for you, it can be like prompting like those questions we talked about to encourage dialogue in the comments, including, resharing because it's informative content that people want to be spreading the news about. You have a little bit of an advantage where like you really could use that to your advantage. I would really focus on like, making sure that you could ask people to share it as a DM, as a direct message. Say, hey, thank you for liking your comments. Can you share this with your network? Can you share this on your story? There's no shame in just asking people directly
Okay.
to do that. Especially if you're getting started and there's not a lot of followers. That's kind of your campaign goal right now, right? We're trying to reach a different network. We're trying to expand our followers. Please share, please like, please subscribe, that kind of stuff.
I just I don't want them to think that sharing is what I want. Money is what
Mhm.
I want.
Yeah, yeah,
So
of course.
yeah. And sometimes if you ask for two things, they go with the cheaper one. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, time, talent, treasure, right? Like, there's
Right, right.
sharing is going to be the fourth pillar of this at some point, but sharing with the intent of opening doors, of reaching new networks, with the ultimate goal of raising money is still okay, right?
Okay.
And people know, like at this point, folks know that a campaign's coming. You're asking people to share. They know that you're asking that because you want to get more folks to give you money.
In that same vein, what's your philosophy or take on ambassadorship, like within your organization?
Yeah,
You
put them
know,
to work. Put them to
yeah,
work. Yeah.
yeah.
This is also a hot take. All right. I get this question around boards a lot, like what should they be doing? Should they be sharing our stuff? Yeah, of course they should be sharing your stuff. Like that's what they're here for.
I have
Um,
like a core set of people that like repeatedly, consistently share our stuff, and I feel like there's a sensitivity in asking people to do that. It's like I don't know how active you are on social media or what your stance is on this, that, and the other, but the ones that do share, it goes a long way.
Sarah, I could tell you, and this is direct experience. I know about your organization because Victoria shares on her
Yeah,
Facebook and
yeah,
Instagram, and that's how I hear about it, right?
yeah,
So
right.
a lot of organizations have policies around use for social media, but this is the time of year where I send out toolkits to staff and to boards and to volunteers, and I say, hey, here's your talking points, here's the social graphics, here's some captions. Please share it at these specific times. Like if they don't want to, and that's on them, that's okay. But your board, key leadership, they should absolutely be deputized to do this. There's also, ambassadors outside of your organization. You might have some volunteers, some people who are just kind of like in the network. I would also, again, deputize them. Say, hey, we got 401 Gives coming up. We need your help. The more, the better.
Yeah, great. Thanks.
Yeah.
Just
And if
oh sorry, go ahead.
No, you got it. You could.
Just to piggyback on what he was saying, I work for the Sandra Bornstein Holocaust Education Center, in Providence. We're a really small nonprofit. There's 3 staff, and all women, which I love. But one thing, thanks, Anna. One thing that we did in the beginning of the year that may help you guys with in terms of storytelling and sharing is, this may sound a little weird, but we had Trisha Driscoll, who is the executive director of the Center for Mediation, and she came and talked to our board members at our board retreat about storytelling, and in terms of storytelling of how to get fundraising. So they are our board members. They are also part of being a board member is you're supposed to help us fundraise. And so what we
Good
got
point.
feedback is, how are we supposed to do that? And so she came in and she just talked about the power of storytelling and how just telling a story about not just it's just about why you want to give.
Yep.
So, like, she literally said to us, what's an organization that's not this org that you give to? Why do you give to that organization? What stuck out to you? So, you're giving to that organization because you heard a story from that org. So now it's the board's turn, or whoever, your ambassador, whoever, now they should go out and tell their story of why this org is important to them and why this org is something that stands out to them. Now, to me, and I can't speak for everyone, that's the bare minimum I feel like board members should be able to do. And so she is very engaging, entertaining. She was really great. So I suggest reaching out to her. She's the executive director of the Center for Mediation. She hooked me in as someone who's 30, who's young, and I was like, give me like all the information that I need, but also hooked in our a lot of our donors are older. Our board members are a lot older, and they all were very, very interested in it as well. So
Mhm.
definitely
What's
reach
her
out to
name
her and
again?
see.
Nope.
Trisha Driscoll. She was really
Yep.
powerful, and she's amazing. She's just great energy, but it was very helpful to engage your board
Thank
to
you.
get that fundraising.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Sorry. Right.
No, 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 of course. No, Trisha's awesome. The power of storytelling, especially for board members, like I I could go into a whole TED talk about this. There's strategic boards, and then there's boards that, roll up their sleeves and do the work. But both of them should be fundraising at this point, right? This is just we can't afford not to, right? But when it comes to storytelling, like make it easy. They don't need to go into these long-winded stories of mission and history and context. I'll use Big Brothers for example again. We just did a little training with their staff and their board where they just have to have a story ready to go around like
Mhm.
when they were a kid and somebody offered, guidance to them. Maybe it wasn't a formal mentorship relationship, but like who were those people in your life who guided you, who were mentors, who were, advising you through struggle or through career change or transition. And then that ties back into the mission organically without having to be so like robotic in a script around a story, right? Just getting people to connect to the why. And if they're board members and they don't have that, that's a whole separate conversation we got to have because maybe they're not aligned to be on the board, but they should have some sort of direct connection that they could freestyle candidly. And then, your job is to give them the tools like graphics and data and whatever to be able to quickly share that online and not have to think too much. Great question. All right. So I could have spent this whole hour talking about like how to, set up typography in Canva. I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to do like a bonus loom around that, but I rather spend our time talking about what's going to be effective in our messaging, in our content in Canva, versus going in on the technical how-tos. Canva has a wonderful nonprofit resources library. They're all videos that could show you like, how to set up gradients and animations and transitions, all that stuff I'm happy to share with you. But I want to use the rest of our 13 minutes to talk about what questions do you have? Are there any technical things with Canva? Are there anything that's looming over you around like your specific messaging? The floor is for everybody here to ask some questions. All right, Amy.
I'm not shy. I have yet to find anything in YouTube or Canva that says, I want Canva 100, forget 101. How do I even get in there? I'm 72 years old. It's overwhelming to me. I'm an Excel master. So it's not
Mhm.
like I'm afraid of technology. But when you learned it, how did you learn it?
Oh wow. So here, there's there's a couple of things here. If you're an Excel master, take that same methodology because if you're good with spreadsheets, you could figure out how to build a little campaign system here. And then you have to really just think about like the templates that they have available to you. If you don't have the time to build from scratch, there's no shame in using like, if you go here and you have all these like predefined. Some of them are AI generated, some of them are like organically generated. Use these templates as a starting board. Because if you're looking at a blank canvas and you're like, I don't even know where to go, you're gonna be frozen. So take a lot of the templates that are available to you and then just refine them to fit your color scheme, your logo, your brand. But there's no shame in starting here. Once you've built one, then you could start replicating them, right? We didn't build all 12 of these out organically. We started with one or two and then used that same content and framing to build a couple other templates, right? So yeah, I'm happy to send you some stuff directly because there's a lot of really good guides on how to get started, but I would start with a template. There's no shame in that.
Thank you.
Yeah, of
I'm a
course.
big fan of YouTube University
Yeah.
when it comes to trying to figure out how to do something new on a platform, like whether it's an Adobe or Canva. Like if you have a specific question, I usually just Google it, and then there is always a video that can give you a tutorial. And I don't know if you have two monitors, but I usually have like the video on one and then whatever project I'm working on in the other, and I just follow it
Oh,
along.
what a
I
great
find that really
idea.
helpful.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Great
Amy, they
idea.
also they also have I mean every platform has all these AI features now, but Canva does have a text to graphic prompt where you could say, I need a flyer for this upcoming fundraising event. I want to feature this title, this information, this description, this link, and it'll generate a draft for you, which at least is bare bones to get started, right? That way you're not starting completely fresh either.
Thank you so much. Great
Yeah, of course.
information.
I have a question in the chat, but also I want to say, look to your peer organizations that you work with as
Mhm.
well. I would hope that nobody is super, scarcity mindset around what they've created. And this goes for everybody, if you see something that you like off of another organization, ask them how they did it. Ask them where they have it, if they can send you a blank copy. In times like this, especially, we should all be working together. And so,
Mhm.
look at around what other people are doing and see what you like that's out there. But we have a question
Katie,
from,
Katie, before you ask that question,
yeah,
did we share the Canva link to everybody who
yeah.
participates? Yeah, so you have access to a bunch of pre-built graphic templates already, which Amy, this might be a great place for you to start. But they have placeholders for you to put your logo in. They're generic. It's the same content that I was just describing. So it's save the date, case for support, that kind of stuff. So you do have some 401 Gives branded ones that you could just start with, immediately, and you don't have to build them from scratch.
That's fabulous. Thank you.
Of course.
We have a question from Donna, and it says, where do we find the nonprofit library that you mentioned?
The nonprofit library. I will find that link and send it afterwards. It's in their, I don't know what they call it. I think they just call it resources.
Mm.
But they have one whole section around nonprofits. Um, I didn't know about that until like 3 months ago, and it's really cool. It talks about building QR codes, about connecting this to like constant contact to build out email headers. Like it's super, super helpful.
Ray and I will build kind of a comprehensive
Mhm.
summary email after this, and we'll send you some links that you need to know. The training will be recorded. So there's some questions around how to access these links, and just give us a little bit of time to put it all together, but you'll have it.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
One thing that I feel like I'm a little nervous about when it comes to 401 Gives is that 401 Gives is March 31st, which is nice. I also have we have our huge fundraiser also on April 28th. And
Mhm.
so I made what the fundraiser is. So to make it clear, our fundraiser is for the Leadership Institute for Teens, our teen program. And I'm
Mhm.
using 401 Gives to ask for money for storytelling for our Speakers Bureau because we have survivors who go to schools and speak. So there's two different goals for it. I feel as if a lot of our donors that we have are going to say, well, I'm going to
Yeah.
game night and I'm paying for game night already, and are not going to want to donate for 401 Gives. What is your advice for something like that? And I know that the timing sucks. I know
Yeah.
that. That was not our choice, but what is your advice? Like, what would you say back to somebody who's like, well, I'm sponsoring because we have levels for sponsorship for game
Mhm.
night. Well, I'm sponsoring game night. Why should I give to this to for 401 gives, even though it is for a different specific purpose? What would you, I don't know. Do you
Yeah.
understand? Am I all over the
100%,
place?
100%. Yeah. Anybody who is doing a spring event or fundraiser is dealing with the same problem right now.
Yes.
And we could go so deep into this, but you have to make the call around like, do I mind double dipping? Right? Do I feel any kind of problem in double dipping here? Or are they two different audiences that I want to target? For example, I'm going to keep going back to Big Brothers because they're just top of mind for me. They have an event 7 days before 401 Gives. And they had to make the call around, yeah, they are two different audiences. So we're not going to worry about competing messaging or overstepping or double dipping. We're just going to treat them as two separate things. But if they were the same exact audience, they would have to make the call around, how can we use these things to support each other? Maybe you're using your 401 Gives campaign kind of as like a pregame, like a pre-party to the actual event. So if is it a ticket-based thing? Or no, you're using it for a program, right?
Like game night, like yeah, so my fundraiser is for, well, they're not getting tickets, but they sign up. Yeah. It's just a guest list. Like after they sign up.
Yeah,
I'm
so
not handing.
maybe
Yeah.
there's like a special treatment, like if you give during 401 Gives at this event, we'll recognize you. Like it could be basic stuff, right? Like you get a sticker pack, you get
My
something, right?
mind is
Like
going everywhere now.
yeah,
Yes.
but use them as a feeder, right? Like it's literally the jump start to your event. Like this is the launch of our thing that's coming up very, very soon, right?
Okay.
Yeah, don't look at them
Perfect.
as competition. They should be supporting each other.
Yeah, no, there's just so many people that were like, well, I'm gonna donate for game night. I'm already sponsoring. And I'm like, yes, but it's a different part of our center that we're raising money for now. So
If
thank you.
you also have these like diehard people that are like, I will only give to one, which some
Hi,
people are like that, and that's okay.
how
Um,
are you?
I, ooh, hold on one second.
Good.
Um, I would also encourage them to then be peer-to-peer fundraisers. So if somebody can only give monetarily once, they can also be a peer-to-peer fundraiser. They can share that link out. And that's them not having to give monetarily, but still committing and helping the campaign grow and growing into their social circles. So there's those two pieces of if they give during 401 Gives, can I provide them an incentive? Can I make this worth their while for the
Mhm.
event that's coming up? And talk to them about matches and challenges and prizes. Let them know that their gift can be doubled and
Right.
there's incentives there. And then if they're still not biting, go the peer-to-peer route and say, listen, you are still a valued person in our organization's
Mhm.
ecosystem and we still want you there. Would you consider being a peer-to-peer fundraiser?
Love
Okay.
that.
Yeah. No, I love that. Thank you.
Hmm.
Yeah, on that same line, we also have some folks who like encourage their board members. If you have like a
Mm.
mandatory minimum gift, give during this window. It'll help you, look better as far as your total goal, but also there's access to matching and all that kind of stuff. So encourage people to give during that window. Just makes sense.
And I think
There's
United Way matches if 100% of your, at least they did last year, and I could be wrong now, but they did that. They matched it if 100% of your board members, up to a certain amount, whatever. If 100% of your board members donated, then United Way matched like X amount or something like that.
We have a
So
prize that's available for
Mhm.
that. So
there you
if all of your board
go.
gives, you want to email 401 Gives the list of your board members, we verify it, and then you get entered into a pool. So it's definitely a little kick in the butt for some inactive boards to do what they're supposed to. But we do have a technical question that I want to get to you, Ray, from the comments.
For sure.
Um, I found that images created in Canva lose clarity when transferred to MailChimp and end up pixelated in the email.
Mhm.
Do you have any ideas as to why that might happen? There was some
Yes.
helpful advice about the download settings, but there's
Mhm.
still the question of what the download settings should be.
Yeah. So if you're going to be exporting to anything that does what's called a compression, like Constant Contact or Mailchimp, and even like Facebook to an extent, I would always download it as a here. I could actually just show the screen here. So, Amy, where are you? Are you still here with us? Here, Amy, I pulled up the templates that I was mentioning earlier, and I put your Smith's Castle logo on it. So, look, you already have your first graphic. You could get started immediately. So if you go to share at the very top and you go to download, it's going to give you a couple different download options. Anytime that you're posting on social, I prefer a JPEG. I find that some PNGs get a little bit more compressed. So if you go to JPEG, Keep the quality, of course, at 100. And then if you're going to be using any of those platforms like MailChimp or Constant Contact, put it at least 1.5. I would not go to 2 because sometimes it'll be too big and it won't import properly, but always do 1.5. They are by default compressing your photo by 50%. So by keeping it at 1.5, you're at least getting what it's supposed to be, if not a little bit more. So always try to shoot for a little bit more. If you're going to be sharing like PDFs or something, they have an option for standard and for print. Always use the standard one. Otherwise, it'll be a giant file that you're not going to be able to like email to people.
Thank
Cool.
you.
Of course.
We
All
are
right.
coming up on just 2 minutes left.
All right. And I guess one more last burning question before we wrap up here.
I don't have anything in the chat, so if anyone wants
No.
to come off mute.
All right, cool. One thing I will mention is, we're here to help. This is not, a solo effort. This is definitely a community effort. So DM us on Instagram, ask us questions, send Katie an email, send me an email. We're happy to help you out as much as we can. This should be something that you don't feel like you're completely alone in, and we want to make sure you lean on community for this.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Is there anything here? I have a question for the audience here. Is there any specific content that you want to see from us from now until March 31st? And any additional things that you might need help with, or specific content that might be good to see?
I think for me, for at least my org, and I don't know if it's the same for others, is that I find that I think because we're a Holocaust education center, a lot of our donors are not social media. And so we send it a lot via email, and we send usually in the past a video
Mm.
to explain. And so I have a marketing intern, and I've now started the marketing um, campaign and stuff like that. But I think trying to figure out how to advertise or how to to put out 401 gives to an older crowd who may not understand the social. So for example, Giving Tuesday, we pressed it exactly how you did it, how you said this in the morning, in the afternoon, the days before, all of that. And my feedback was you sent us way too many. You posted way too much. Like that was my feedback. And I understand why I did it, and I explained why I did it, and it wasn't understood. But how
Mhm.
can these types of fundraisers that we have to help us, how can we also advertise for the generation that didn't have social media as well and get
Yeah.
them involved? And yeah.
So I would do this first. I'm a big fan of polling your audience, right? Surveying folks. Ask them directly, what type of content do you want to receive? And if you have a donor database, check off the appropriate channel so you're not bombarding them with stuff that doesn't make sense to them. But I also would call out the, older generations not being social savvy. The data around like TikTok usage and Facebook usage is so skewed, 60 plus. So it's not just like 13-year-olds doing dances on TikTok. It's a certain generation that wants simple, straightforward video. So don't dismiss them as like they don't know what they're consuming. They're familiar with this format, right? But again, just ask people, how do you want to receive this? Cool.
I'd
Great question.
also say, send some physical mail. If there's one thing that old people love to do, it's call
Oh, I
people's
know.
phones when they don't get something. Like, send them something about 401 Gives in the mail, and if they are genuinely interested in it and they don't get it, they're probably going to call you because that's what old people do.
Oh yes, we
Um,
get those.
but that might be a good touch point where they're reaching out for more information from you and not just ignoring something that's coming up on their screen.
Okay, yeah. Thanks.
Awesome. All right, folks, we're at time. I appreciate you all listening to me ramble for an hour. Please send me your questions. Katie's going to follow up with some of the materials we talked about. She'll
hmm
include my email in there, but I'm most accessible on LinkedIn. If you have other questions, just send me a message there, and I'm happy to help if I can.
Thank you so much, Ray. This has been a wonderful mix of Canva and Social Media 101. Thank you, everybody, for participating in 401 Gives. A day like this does not work without the nonprofits. It's for you and not without you. I am eternally grateful for the work that you do in this campaign and every single day. Please always reach out for help if you need anything. And I really look forward to raising a whole bunch of money with you on April 1st and March 31st. Have a great rest of your afternoon and always reach out if you need something.